Hello sports fans, it is Monday, November the 26th, the year 2012, and as usual, a lot to get to in the sports world, so let's get it going right now. I hope everyone had a happy Thanksgiving out there. I hope you enjoyed the games. I hope you enjoyed the food. I hope you enjoyed your family. Without further ado, let's get to the Thursday games, the Thanksgiving games. In Detroit, the Houston Texans in overtime beat the Detroit Lions 34-31. Houston goes to 10-1. Detroit drops to 4-7. If you're a Detroit Lion fan, you're scratching your head today saying, how in the world did we lose this game? Detroit controlled this game for much of the way. Detroit is up 24-14 in the third quarter, and here's where the game changed. Houston running back runs for a long touchdown. He appears to be down. The referees missed the call. He runs for a touchdown. You think it's going to be reviewed. All touchdowns are reviewed. Instead, Jim Schwartz, the coach of Detroit, throws the challenge flag. Once he does that, that negates any challenge. So Schwartz actually blew this. He didn't know the rules. Every touchdown is reviewed, but he cannot throw the challenge flag there. Once he throws the challenge flag, they cannot go to the booth and review it. It's a ridiculous rule. They need to get rid of it. If they want to make it a personal foul on the coach and give the other team 15 yards, that's fine, but you still should be able to review the call. This changed the whole game. That made it 24-21. From there, Houston ties it. In overtime, Houston wins it. Overtime was kind of crazy. Houston misses a field goal to win it. Then Detroit misses a field goal to win it. Hansen hits the upright. And finally, Houston comes down and wins. And again, Houston wins a game, and Detroit finds a way to lose. Unbelievable. Two teams going in opposite directions. Houston can do no wrong. They've won 2 overtime games in a row, and Detroit cannot get out of their own way. Detroit did deserve a better fate in this game. They played really hard. They played really well. And again, they have nothing to show for it. Typical Lions. Next week, the Lions host Indianapolis in Detroit. Interesting game from an Indianapolis perspective. And Houston is at Tennessee. That should be another win for Houston. They should go to 11-1. So really a heartbreaking loss for the Lions on Thanksgiving. Let's move on to the 4 o'clock game on Thanksgiving. The Washington Redskins go into Dallas, into the Big D, and beat Dallas 38-31. Washington goes up to 5-6. Dallas drops to 5-6. Once again, Robert Griffin III, very good, 20 for 28, 311 yards, 4 touchdowns. Just an unbelievable second quarter for Washington. They get 28 points in the second quarter. They're down 3-0 in the first quarter. They get 28 points in the second quarter. All of a sudden, they're up 28-3. Cowboys once again try and rally. They make a habit of falling behind in these games and trying to make a furious comeback. They fall short. Once again, Dallas 3 turnovers. To me, Garrett, the coach, has to go. He's not a big-time coach. Dallas needs a big-time coach like a Gruden or a Cowher in there. The Cowboys had a chance to go to 6-5 here to get their head above water. And what do? They fall flat on their face again. How in the world do you let the Washington Redskins walk into your building and put up 28 straight points in the second quarter with a rookie quarterback? How in the world does Jerry Jones sit up in his luxury box and deal with this? Garrett's got to go to me. They got to bring in a big coach, and they need to change this personnel. It's just not working in Dallas. They have some talent. Romo is strange, too. He does some great things, then he does some stupid things. So once again, Dallas finds a way to lose. Nice job by Washington getting this win. And another thing. What's with Ryan, the defensive coordinator for Dallas? He's just as bad as his brother, the coach of the Jets. I mean, they are just so indigestible, both of them. I mean, his defense isn't even playing well, and they always are showing him on camera celebrating about something. He has nothing to celebrate about, so I'm down on him as well. Next week, the Washington Redskins on Monday night host the New York Giants. That's the Monday night game next week. Sunday night next week, Philadelphia at Dallas. I mean, I don't know what to make of Dallas the rest of the year. To me, they're a 500 team. They win 1, lose 2, win 2. They're a 500 team. They just cannot put together a complete game or a complete season for that matter. So Washington gets the win there. Let's move on to the night game on Thanksgiving Day. I hope you guys didn't spend your whole Thanksgiving night watching this game. New England goes into the Meadowlands and beats the Jets 49-19. Let me say it again. 49-19. Nice performance by the Jets in front of their home crowd. I mean, imagine if you're a Jet fan and you leave your Thanksgiving Day dinner early to get out to the Meadowlands for this mess, and you get drubbed 49-19. Patriots go to 8-3. Jets drop to 4-7. The Jets are a complete circus. Here's what you need to know about this game. The Jets had 5 turnovers. At one point, Sanchez ran into his own man, fell flat on his back like a turtle.
The ball came loose. New England ran that back. Then on the next kickoff, the Jets fumbled the kickoff. It pops up in the air, and the Patriots run that back. The Patriots scored like 21 points in less than a minute in this game. I mean, that's why New England is New England, a class-winning franchise, and that's why the Jets are a perennial loser all the time. I mean, what a circus this game was. I cannot believe the Jets played this bad. New England's defense is not even that good, and the Jets couldn't even do anything against the New England defense. Jets season is finished. Ryan is a complete joke. The team is a mess. I don't know what they're going to do in the offseason. I don't think they're getting rid of Ryan because they seem to love him. I don't like him. I think he's a good defensive coordinator. I don't think he's a good head coach. Anyway, next week, Arizona at the Jets. You talk about a mess of a game there. New England at Miami. Interesting game there. So New England gets the win on Thanksgiving night. All right, let's go to the Sunday games. Let's go to yesterday. The Chicago Bears at home in historic Soldier Field beat the Minnesota Vikings 28-10. The Bears go to 8-3. The Vikings drop to 6-5. Cutler comes back from the concussion. He plays very well. To me, the Vikings are about to turn into a pumpkin. I've said it. This is the tough part of their schedule. They have a really tough schedule here on out. They've done a nice job, Minnesota, up until this point. They've doubled their win total from last year. They just don't have it enough to push, forward into this with the tough schedule they have. So Minnesota is to me, not going to make the playoffs. They're going to lose a lot of games from here on out. Nice job by Chicago. They needed this game. They've lost 2 in a row. Cutler was out, the concussion. They played really well, as usual. The Bear defense, again, they forced 3 Minnesota turnovers. Every week it seems the Bears come up with more and more turnovers. Every week it seems that defense is turning the ball, turn the other team over all the time. Bears have a championship defense. Cutler is good, even though he's moody. They have good running backs, although we have to keep an eye on Forte, who got hurt. They have the nice receiver in Marshall. They have good special teams. What you worry about with the Bears is their offensive line. That could be their undoing. They don't have a great offensive line. They looked tremendous yesterday, though. The Bears played a really, really nice game, and they just blew out Minnesota. So once again, Bears go to 8-3. They actually go in the first place. Minnesota drops to 6-5. They're still alive, but I think Minnesota's going to go the other way now. Next week, Seattle at Chicago. Very interesting game. Minnesota at Green Bay. Let's move on to Cincinnati. The Cincinnati Bengals beat the Oakland Raiders 34-10. The Bengals have won 3 in a row. They go up to 6-5. Raiders drop to 3-8. Is there a worse defense in the NFL than the Oakland Raiders? How bad is this defense? They give up over 30 points every single week. Just a terrible job by the Oakland Raiders. I cannot believe their defense is this bad. I mean, my goodness, they can't stop anyone. Nice job here by Cincinnati. They were 3-5. They've won 3 in a row. They've rebounded. They're tied with the Steelers. The Steelers do have the tiebreaker, but the Steelers are going in the wrong direction with all these injuries. So the Bengals are back in the playoff mix. The Raiders, I mean, they need all sorts of work. I don't even know where you start with the Raiders. Anyway, Cleveland at Oakland next week. You talk about a nightmare of a game. Cincinnati at San Diego. Very interesting game from a Bengals standpoint because they are back in the playoff race. Let's move on. Let's move on to Cleveland, the dog pound. The Cleveland Browns finally beat the Pittsburgh Steelers. They beat them 20-14. The Brown fans have been waiting for this game forever. The Steelers have owned this rivalry in recent years, and the Steelers have completely dominated. The Browns win this game. They go up to 3-8. Steelers drop to 6-5. The Steelers had 8 turnovers. 8. 5 fumbles, 3 interceptions by Batch. Penalties all over the place, sloppy football. I mean, just a complete mess of a game by Pittsburgh. How in the world do you turn the ball over 8 times? You know what the funny thing is? The Steelers only lost by 6 points and they had 8 turnovers. How is that even possible? I mean, if you have 8 turnovers, you should lose by 30 points. 8 turnovers on the road and they were still in the game. That shows you a lot about Cleveland. Pittsburgh needs Roethlisberger back, needs Polamalu back, needs Brown back. The Steelers have all sorts of injuries. Until Roethlisberger gets back, the Steelers can't beat anyone. They cannot beat anyone with Leftwich. They cannot beat anyone with Batch. The Steelers are going nowhere until Roethlisberger comes back. Until then, it's going to be a loss after a loss after a loss. 8 turnovers yesterday. Just completely ridiculous. Next week, like I said, Cleveland at Oakland, Pittsburgh at Baltimore. That's going to be another loss. As a matter of fact, if Roethlisberger comes back, I still think they're going to lose to Baltimore. Steelers are in all sorts of trouble with this injury situation. They need to get healthy and healthy fast. Let's move on. Let's go to Indianapolis. The Indianapolis Colts beat the Buffalo Bills 20-13. The Colts go to 7-4. Bills drop to 4-7. The Colts are 5-1. I said this from day one. The Colts are going to play well at home. They're going to struggle on the road, and that's exactly what's happened this year. They play very, very well at home. Luck is comfortable at home. Their pass rush is better at home. They do everything better at home. Really nice job by the Colts this year. They look like they're going to make the playoffs. They look like they're going to make it. Right now, they're leading the wild card. I think the Colts are going to make the playoffs. Just unbelievable job by the Colts and their coaching staff and Andrew Luck. He's come in and he's been as good as advertised. You can't say anything bad about the young kid. Buffalo Bills 4-7, can't get out of their own way again. They look pretty decent the week before against Miami on that Thursday night. Once again, they can't follow it up. They fall flat on their face. Bills going nowhere fast. I don't trust their defense, even though some people love it. I don't like Fitzpatrick. I don't like much about the Bills. They need a whole lot of work. So the Colts get the win here. The Colts are in Detroit next week. Jacksonville at Buffalo, another unwatchable game next week. Let's move on. Let's go to Kansas City, where the Denver Broncos beat the Kansas City Chiefs 17-9. Denver goes to 8-3. They stay hot. Kansas City drops to 1-10. I'll tell you, this was a very close game. Denver didn't play great in this game. Kansas City showed some fight, but as usual, they can't get the ball in the end zone. Quinn started in place of Castle. He's not great, we know that. I mean, Kansas City did play decently, but again, they couldn't get the ball in the end zone. 3 field goals for Kansas City. That's not going to get the job done against a good Denver team. I mean, I have to give Kansas City a little bit of credit. They did hang in the game, but once again, it's a loss. They're 1-10. One of the most disappointing teams in the league, Kansas City, this year. And Denver continues to impress. They are hot. They continue to win. Denver is definitely going to make the playoffs, and they are, with Peyton Manning in that defense, a contender to go far in the playoffs. Next week, Carolina at Kansas City, another unwatchable game. Tampa Bay at Denver, very interesting game. Let's keep an eye on that game. All right, let's move on. Let's go down to Miami. Let's go to South Florida. The Miami Dolphins, in overtime, beat the Seattle Seahawks 24-21. Miami goes up to 5-6. Seattle drops to 6-5. I mean, this was a game, again, Tannehill played well. He was 18 for 26. I don't love Seattle on the road. Seattle is one of the best home teams in football. They do not play well on the road. You saw it here again yesterday. And this is the longest flight in the NFL, by the way. From Seattle to Miami is the longest flight in the NFL. So really, really nice job by Miami bouncing back after that bad loss to Buffalo on Thursday night. They beat Seattle. I think I said this game was in overtime. This wasn't in overtime. Miami scored right at the end of the game. So Miami wins 24-21. Next week, New England at Miami. Seattle at Chicago. Very interesting game there. Let's move on. Let's go to West Florida. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Atlanta Falcons. The Atlanta Falcons beat the Buccaneers 24-23. Falcons go up to 10-1. They can do no wrong. Buccaneers drop to 6-5. Very tough loss for Tampa Bay. This game was back and forth the whole way. Tampa Bay at the end of the game missed a long field goal, and Atlanta hung on to win. Atlanta every week finds new and creative ways to win, and you can't say much bad about Atlanta. They just keep winning. They have a really solid, nice team. Tampa Bay, playing hard, playing well. They're in the playoff hunt. Very tough luck loss, but I like what I see from Tampa Bay. I really do. They're really on the right path. Shiano's done a really nice job with Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay at Denver next week. Very interesting game. And New Orleans at Atlanta on the Thursday night. Big rivalry there. Let's move on. All right, let's move on to Jacksonville. The Jacksonville Jaguars at home beat the Tennessee Titans 24-19. Jacksonville gets its second win of the year. They're 2-9. Tennessee drops to 4-7. Henne has looked good in place of Gabbert the last couple of weeks. They've shown some life with Henne. He had 261 yards passing, 2 touchdowns yesterday. Jacksonville shows some life with Henne. They seem to like him more than Gabbert. Gabbert they were struggling with. The move to Henne seemed to inspire them. So Jacksonville played well against Houston. They come back and win here. What is wrong with Tennessee? You can't lose to Jacksonville. I don't care if the game's in Jacksonville. You can't lose to Jacksonville and go to 4-7. Tennessee, another big disappointment. They were decent last year. They've been a complete bust this year. 4-7 and losing to Jacksonville. Awful job by Tennessee. Like I said, Houston at Tennessee next week. Jacksonville at Buffalo. So, I mean, just a terrible job by Tennessee. Nice job by Jacksonville, though. Let's move on. Let's move on to San Diego. In overtime, the Baltimore Ravens beat the San Diego Chargers 16-13. San Diego drops to 4-7. Baltimore goes up to 9-2. How in the world did San Diego lose this game? How in the world did San Diego lose this game? I mean, San Diego was leading this game 13-3 with 5 minutes left. They have a 13-10 lead, and Baltimore has a 4th and 29. 4th and 29. What does Baltimore do? They throw a little swing pass out to Ray Rice. Now it's 4th and 29. San Diego misses about 150 tackles, and Ray Rice actually gets 30 yards on a little dump off pass. Baltimore gets a first down. They kick the game-tying field goal. They win it in overtime, and this is what I always say. This is how good teams win and bad teams lose. How in the world, if you're San Diego, do you let Baltimore convert a 4th and 29 on a swing pass? San Diego, a complete joke. They're just as bad as any bad team in the league. They're a circus. North Turn has got to go. They got to redo the whole team. They're an embarrassment. The way they lost this game last night, if I was a San Diego Charger, I would have been sick walking out of that stadium. Baltimore, nice job getting the win. Baltimore's not the same team on the road. They play great at home. They score a bunch of points at home. They are the complete opposite on the road. They cannot score on the road. They are a big bully team at home. They do not play the same way on the road. They do pull out the victory. They are 9-2, but in the playoffs, when Baltimore, it's going to come down to how much home field Baltimore has. If Baltimore gets home field, they can go a long way. If they don't get home field, they are very, very, very vulnerable. Next week, Cincinnati at San Diego. That's a big game for Cincinnati. Pittsburgh at Baltimore. We'll keep an eye on Roethlisberger there. Let's move on. Let's move on to the desert in Arizona. The St. Louis Rams beat the Arizona Cardinals 31-17. Rams go to 4-6-1. Arizona drops to 4-7. Arizona's lost 7 in a row. Arizona's lost 7 in a row. Their defense is good. They have a complete mess at quarterback. Cobb is hurt. They bench Skelton. Now they go at Lindley. He throws 4 interceptions yesterday. Fitzgerald is good, but they have no one to compliment him, so they double Fitzgerald all the time. Arizona's running backs are always hurt. Their offensive line is bad. Arizona, a complete mess, lost 7 in a row. St. Louis, nice bounce back from them. They lost to the Jets. They have a nice bounce back win here. I do like what I see overall from St. Louis. Fisher has them playing hard. They are showing signs of improvement. They still need a lot of work, though. So St. Louis gets the win here. Arizona at the Jets next week. Talk about a horrible game there. San Francisco at St. Louis. Kind of interesting. They had that tie a few weeks ago. Let's move on. Let's move on to the Superdome in New Orleans. The San Francisco 49ers beat the New Orleans Saints 31-21. Niners go to 8-1. Saints drop to 5-6. Here's what you need to know about this game. The Saints were up 14-7. Breeze throws an interception at the end of the first half that's run back 14-14. Niners take the opening kick of the third quarter and march down and score to go up 21-14. Next time Breeze gets the ball, he throws another interception, and the Niners run that back. Breeze threw 2 passes that were run back for touchdowns, and in between that, the Niners had another touchdown. So the Niners went from 14-7 down to 28-14, leading in a blink of an eye. Niners are starting to play really good football. They're 8-2-1. I think they're a major contender. I like what I see from Kaepernick. I would stick with him over Smith. I think Kaepernick has more of an upside than Smith, and I really like what I see from him. Really, really nice player. And the Niners' defense is really good. They can play with anyone when they're on top of the game. Bad loss for the Saints here. They could have really used this win. They can't really afford to have any more losses, the Saints. They had such a bad start. They rallied a little bit. This was a setback for them. New Orleans on a short week at Atlanta. Not easy on Thursday night. Big rivalry. That won't be easy. San Francisco at St. Louis. Let's move on. Let's move on to the Meadowlands. Let's move on to the Giants in Green Bay. The Giants absolutely plastic Green Bay 38-10. Giants needed this win after their bye and 2 straight losses. Giants up to 7-4. Green Bay down to 7-4. Giants pass rush was amazing. O.C., Pierre, Paul, Tuck all played well. I mean, Eli was good. Cruz was good. I mean, Nix was good. The Giants played a complete game. When the Giants are on their A game, like you saw last night, they can beat anyone. Just like what you saw when they went out to San Francisco earlier in this year and blew out the Niners. Just like you saw last year in their playoff run, the Giants can beat anyone when they bring their A game. They can get a little sloppy in the regular season. They can play down to their opponent. But if the Giants get in the playoffs, which I think they will, they can beat anyone. Here's what I don't like about Green Bay, and it's a lot. First of all, they have a lot of injuries. A lot of injuries, Green Bay, especially on the defensive end, with Matthews and Woodson being out. Then I don't like their offensive line. They give up way too many sacks. Don't like their running game. They haven't had a 100-yard rusher in like 30-something straight games. They do have Rodgers. They do have the receivers. That gives them a chance in every game. But Green Bay's got some major problems, and they really need to get some of these guys back. Next week, Minnesota at Green Bay. Very interesting game at Lambeau Field. Giants, like I said, at Washington on Monday night. Tonight, you have an awful game in Philadelphia. Philadelphia Eagles and the Carolina Panthers. Just a complete awful game. I mean, just an unwatchable Monday night game. A terrible. The NFL really got burned. They're going to have the Eagles on a bunch of times, from here on out. They play Monday night, then they play Sunday night, the Eagles, and they're completely unwatchable at this point. So a really bad game tonight, Philadelphia and Carolina. Let's quickly go to the college football. Let's see where we are in the college football. Notre Dame beats USC out in the Coliseum. Notre Dame wins 22-13. Notre Dame finishes 12-0. USC, a very disappointing 7-5. Barkley does not play. How do you like this? At the beginning of the year, Notre Dame was unranked. They finished the year number 1. USC at the beginning of the year, ranked number 1. They finish unranked. Unbelievable. That's why those polls and those rankings don't mean a thing. They really don't. Notre Dame with a big goal line stand at the end of this game. Once again, the Notre Dame defense is good. The Notre Dame offense does just enough, and Notre Dame completes their perfect season, and Notre Dame is in the national championship game, and they will play the winner of the Alabama-Georgia game and the SEC championship game. That game will be played on Saturday. Alabama just drubs Auburn in the Iron Bowl, 49-0. Alabama goes to 11-1. Auburn 3-9. Auburn went 3-9 this year. 2 years ago, they won the national title. They just fired their coach. Just a complete mess at Auburn. So like I said, Alabama plays Georgia in Atlanta this week. Georgia blew out Georgia Tech at home. Georgia beat Georgia Tech 42-10. I mean, Georgia went up to 11-1. Very disappointing year for Georgia Tech at 6-6 also. Georgia plays Alabama in Atlanta. The winner of that game plays Notre Dame for the title. A few other news and notes on college football. Ohio State went undefeated. They beat Michigan in the game, 26-21. Ohio State went undefeated, 12-0. They can't go anywhere, though, because they're on probation. So Urban Meyer, really nice job getting this Ohio State team undefeated this year. They pulled out a lot of close games, but they did win all of them. And I think Ohio State's going to be even better next year. So nice job by Ohio State. Over to the Civil War game. Oregon went into Corvallis and beat Oregon State 48-24. Oregon's 11-1. They are going to be kicking themselves, left and right the whole offseason, for losing to Stanford at home. That kept them out of the national championship game. They did have a nice season, though, at 11-1. Oregon State had a nice season, too, at 8-3. Florida goes into Florida State and beats the Seminoles 37-26. Florida finishes at 11-1. Florida State at 10-2. This was a strange game. Florida was up 13-0. Then Florida State went up 20-13. Then Florida went up 37-20 and finally won 37-26. It was a back and forth, very strange game. Really nice job by Florida winning this game in Tallahassee. I didn't think they had it in them. Really nice job. Very disappointed in Florida State this year. They lost a terrible game to North Carolina State, and they lost a home game to Florida. I mean, where was this great Florida State defense? They let North Carolina State rally in the fourth quarter to beat them. They let Florida put up 37 points at home against them. Plus, they let Clemson score a bunch of points on them. So Florida State, even though they went 10-2, very disappointing. The ACC was really weak this year. Florida State actually should have been better than 10-2. Nice job by Florida, 11-1 in the SEC. Really nice job by them. Texas A&M, they beat Missouri 59-29. Texas A&M finishes at 10-2 in their first year in the SEC. Missouri 5-7, not great in their first year in the SEC. Manziel, the quarterback for Texas A&M, continues to be great. He's one of the Heisman contenders. He's a freshman. Don't know if they're going to give it to a freshman, but he's definitely up there along with Manti Te'o of Notre Dame. We'll see if they give it to a defensive player at Notre Dame. Who knows? All right, let's go to the LSU-Arkansas game. LSU beats Arkansas 20-13. This game was actually in Fayetteville. They usually play this game in Little Rock. They actually played this game in Fayetteville. They wanted the game on campus, so they didn't play in Little Rock this year. They played it on campus in Fayetteville. LSU gets the win 20-13. I'll tell you what was the play of the game here. I mean, Smith, the coach of Arkansas, who got fired, and after this call, he should have got fired. Arkansas is a 4th and 1 from the 1, down 7 points in the fourth quarter, and what do? They kick a field goal to make it 17-13. Why? Arkansas has nothing to lose. They're a dead carcass of a team. Why wouldn't you go for it there and try and tie the game? And if you don't get it, you leave LSU at the 1. You kick a field goal there and make it 17-13? Why? Don't understand it. Arkansas, a dismal season for them. Smith is not going to be back as coach. They're going to be looking for a new coach. LSU had a decent year, but not a great year. All right, let's move on. Let's move on to Death Valley. South Carolina Gamecocks go into Clemson and beat Clemson 27-17. South Carolina finishes at 10-2. Clemson also finishes at 10-2. I'll tell you, Thompson, the backup quarterback for South Carolina, actually outplayed the Clemson quarterback Boyd. Boyd, the Clemson quarterback, 11 for 24, 183. Thompson for South Carolina, 23 for 41, 310 and 3 touchdowns. The backup quarterback for South Carolina actually outplayed the Clemson starter. That was the difference in this game. So really nice job by South Carolina getting this win. They didn't have Lattimore, so really nice job. Clemson, very disappointing that they lost this game. So Clemson had 2 big games this year, Florida State and South Carolina, and they lost them both, even though they had a decent record. Very disappointing for Clemson. They should have won at least one of these games. I mean, the ACC is weak, so you expect them to beat all the other teams. So nice job by South Carolina there. Let's go to the Apple Cup. That's Washington State and Washington. Washington State gets a big win. They beat Washington 31-28 in overtime. Washington State finishes a very disappointing 3-9, but they do beat their big rival. Washington did some nice things this year. They finished at 7-5. They'll go to a bowl game. They're much better at home than on the road, Washington. Washington actually had a 28-10 lead in this game in the third quarter and blew it. So terrible job by Washington losing this game. Nice job by Washington State finishing their season with a nice rivalry win. Let's go to the duel in the desert, the Territorial Cup at Arizona. The Arizona Wildcats beat the Arizona State Sun Devils. Arizona State beats Arizona 41-34 at Arizona. Arizona State finishes at 7-5. Arizona also at 7-5. Nice job by Arizona State in this game, winning on the road. They don't play well on the road. They got the win here. Really nice job by them. Arizona, overall, nice job by them, finishing at 7-5. Rich Rodriguez's first year seems to be heading that team in the right direction. So both teams finished at 7-5. Arizona State does get the win here on the road. Let's move on. Let's go to the Thanksgiving night game. TCU goes into Austin and beats Texas 20-13. TCU finishes. Well, actually, they have one more game. They're 7-4. One game left. Texas drops to 8-3. Terrible job by Texas. What has happened to Texas? They lost a home game to TCU on Thanksgiving night. This is not even a great TCU team. So very down on Texas. Very down on Mac Brown. Nice job by TCU getting the win here. Let's move on. Let's move on to Virginia. Virginia Tech at home beats Virginia 17-14. Virginia becomes bowl eligible. They're 6-6. Virginia drops to 4-8. Very disappointing year by them. And Frank Beamer has now gone to a bowl game 20 straight years. So nice job by Virginia Tech getting bowl eligible, even though their season was pretty much a disappointment. Let's move on. Let's move on to the Rose Bowl. Stanford goes into UCLA and beats UCLA 35-17. Stanford 10-2. UCLA 9-3. Two surprise teams. Very impressed with Stanford off the big win in Eugene against Oregon last week. They go back on the road and beat a good UCLA team. Same two teams will play in the Pac-12 championship game this week, except they'll reverse venues. They played in the Rose Bowl here this week. Next week, UCLA at Stanford. So it's a rematch, except they change venues. They'll be playing out in the Farm in Stanford. Two very, very up-and-coming teams. They did nice jobs this year. Very well deserved that they're representing the Pac-12 in the Pac-12 championship game. Very surprising teams this year. Nice job by Stanford getting the win here. Let's go to Oklahoma, the Bedlam Series in Norman. The Oklahoma Sooners beat the Oklahoma State Cowboys 51-48 in overtime. Oklahoma finishes at 9-2. Oklahoma State 7-4. Actually, both of those teams have one game left. Nice job by Oklahoma. Oklahoma State actually had the lead most of this game. Oklahoma rallies and gets the win. Little disappointed overall in Oklahoma this year. I thought their defense would be better. They gave up a lot of points this year, and even though they're 9-2, disappointed in them. They should be better than 9-2. They should be like a 10-1, 11-0 team. Oklahoma defense very disappointing. Oklahoma State at 7-4, a little down this year. They really should have beat Texas. They could be 8-3. There was a bad call in that game. Oklahoma State gives up a lot of points too. They got to work on their defense. Let's move on. Let's go to Happy Valley in Penn State. Penn State beats Wisconsin in overtime, 24-21. Penn State finishes at 8-4. Wisconsin drops to 7-5. You have to give Penn State all sorts of credit for keeping this together. You have to give the coaching staff credit, the seniors for keeping this together. Penn State started 0-2. They had the scandal. They're on probation. A whole mess at Penn State. They keep it together. They rally. They go 8-4. They beat Wisconsin. Really nice job by Penn State this year. Wisconsin, very disappointing at 7-5. I haven't been impressed with Wisconsin all year. Having said that, they do make the Big Ten title game. They will play Nebraska this week. Not impressed with Wisconsin this year. Not at all. I think Nebraska is going to beat Wisconsin. We'll get into that game later in the week. Let's go to the Egg Bowl in Ole Miss. Ole Miss beats Mississippi State 41-24. Ole Miss 6-6. Mississippi State 8-4. Mississippi State was undefeated at one point. Then they started getting to their meat of the schedule, and they lost a bunch of games at the end of the year. Nice job by Ole Miss here. I also wanted to mention San Jose State. San Jose State at home beat Louisiana Tech 52-43. Louisiana Tech had a nice year at 9-3. San Jose State even better, 10-2. 10-2 San Jose State. Tremendous job by San Jose State. That is an impossible place to win. So really nice job by San Jose State. This Thursday for the Big East title, Louisville at Rutgers. We'll touch on this game as the week goes on. I want to touch real quick on the college basketball, as that's your college football. We'll get into more college football on Wednesday. College basketball, it was a nice game over the weekend. Duke beat Louisville. Louisville was ranked 2. Duke was ranked 5 coming in. Duke beats Louisville 76-71, so a really nice win by Duke. It's early in the college basketball year. I mean, there's 1,000,001 games on, but that was a nice win for Duke. Tomorrow we're going to do the Monday night game. Like I said, terrible game, Philadelphia, Carolina. I'm going to do the NBA. I'm going to go through the NFL standings. Wednesday we'll go through the games of the week for the college football. Thursday, obviously, we'll do all NFL. So that is the sports for today. You guys enjoy your day. Enjoy the Monday Night Football game if it's possible. I know it's a bad one. I will talk to you tomorrow, Tuesday, where we'll go over everything that's going on in the sports world. I will talk to you then. Stay safe. Have a great Monday. Talk to you Tuesday. Take care.